Now that the engine is looking good, let's move on to the cooling and braking systems. The radiator has some pretty major rust damage, and who knows if it's even able to hold liquid at all. Since I had the hoses off, I decided I would start my journey by replacing the thermostat. This is by far the nastiest thermostat I've ever seen out of the 2 whole times I've done a thermostat. I don't even know what caused this mush of crystal and slime, but all I know is that it has to come out. Here's a comparison between the old thermostat and the new one. To check for leaks, I filled both the original radiator and the backup radiator with water. I let them both sit for about an hour and came back to check on the results. The good news is that the original radiator has no obvious leaks, so we'll just keep using that one. After covering the coolant pathways, I took the water outlet and the overflow tank inside for cleaning. Now, it's time for the radiator flush. Using Prestone radiator flush. It says to pour the whole bottle, so we're going to go ahead and do that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So what do you think about this project car?
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Because last I heard you said it was pretty stupid. Which I agree. But now we're going to put in the water and we're going to let this sit for 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah. Why? I don't know, because the instructions said to do that. Purpose of this is to get all the rust out of the radiator. As you can see, I taped the... Okay, I think we put a little bit too much, so we're going to go ahead and abort mission. Just kidding. So it's going to leak. That's cool. No big deal. Just going to go ahead and close that off with the new radiator cap. And we'll wait for 3 days and see how it goes. After about 3 days, I went to go drain it, and I was surprised to see that it was actually very clear coming out. I swished it around a little bit with new water and got a much better result. I also took off the temperature sensor for cleaning. After that, I slipped on the new gasket for the water outlet and tightened it down. Hoses went on next, along with some redone wiring to complete most of the cooling system. One of the connectors on the distributor fell off somehow, so I also replaced that with a new connector. Since the water pump runs off of the serpentine belt, I figured it wouldn't be too hard to replace it. Unfortunately, the new pump does not work with the current pulley I have, so I'll have to keep using the old one for now. I did put on a new gasket, of course, to make sure it doesn't leak. I also cleaned off where the gasket meets the block. I tightened everything up, and a new belt went on as well, since I was already in there, and finally the cooling system is finished. I wanted to check on the condition of the timing belt while I was at it. This meant I had to take off the valve cover. It actually doesn't look too bad in there. The timing belt itself is in decent shape with some good tension, so I'm not going to mess with it just yet. I cleaned the valve cover gasket seat, put a new one on, and even ordered in a new oil cap to complete it. Later, I noticed that our new water outlet gasket was actually leaking, so I went ahead and took it apart all over again. To try to remedy the problem, I went ahead and put the old gasket back on the thermostat. Good thing I still kept it, right? With the hose and clamps back on again, I was actually done for real this time. New coolant went in, and get this, it was still leaking. I took it apart one more time and cleaned the mating points between the outlet and thermostat. I smushed both gaskets together and tightened it on with the hand of God himself. Now, there's no leaks. I also did some minor adjustments to the clutch pedal to make it even with the brake pedal. I made a makeshift cable bracket since the original clutch cable bracket was somehow snapped off. I think it's time we finally get this car going. My neighbor watched as I tried to start it up for the first time since buying it. Alright. Try it again. Alright, third time's the charm. Here we go. And again. Take 5. Damn. But we just had no luck. Diagnostic time. Cars need 3 things to start. 1, it needs fuel, obviously. 2, it needs compression. And lastly, it needs a spark to start the fire. Which one do you think we were missing here? If you answered B, spark, you win absolutely nothing. But good job. You may be thinking, but wait a second, Josh, you installed the spark plugs in part 1. What do you mean there's no spark? Well, why don't we actually go back to that time in history, shall we? Now I have to put the new spark plug wires on in the right order. Turns out though, the new wires were already labeled 1 through 4, so my labeling I did earlier was pretty much all for nothing. Yeah, it pretty much was all for nothing. Now I'm about to explain to you why this went horribly wrong. So here's what happened. I started numbering cylinders here on the left side. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4 in a straight line across away from me. Then I went over to the other side to actually take off the spark plug wires, and for some reason I used that same logic to number the cylinders the second time around. You can clearly see the mistake in this clip from part 1. I messed up in such a stupid way that I think my days as a subpar mechanic are over. Yeah, anyway, the car actually runs now, and since you guys have been pretty patient, I might as well just show you. It's not going to start for very long, it's going to eat through that gas.
Okay, I'm gonna stand over here.
No, you're supposed to get it. Alright, you ready? Hey, make sure you're doing landscape, not portrait, like you always do. You got it?
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's cute.
It runs, you hear it?
Yeah.
It's actually going. Watch, go over there.
Look.
I know, right? It's gonna run out of gas very soon. Like right there. You see all the smoke in the air? I think we've made really good progress in this episode. We got the cooling system done, we redid some of the wiring and electrical, and we got some of the little stuff like the clutch cable all working. And best of all, we actually got the car running. On the next episode, we're going to be focusing on tuning it properly and getting it ready for emissions testing so that I can get it registered in my name and drive it around town. But for now, let's do a rundown on the costs that we have so far. To start off, for our list of costs, we have 2 gallons of coolant, it's about $30. The radiator flush treatment was $8. The thermostat along with its gasket was $5. Radiator hoses, both upper and lower, were $17. New connectors and wires I estimate about $15. The serpentine belt was $3, surprisingly. The water pump that we never actually got to use was $15, and I made a small allowance of $50 to cover any shipping or any items that I may have missed in the calculations, for a grand total of $143. When you add that to the previous grand total that we had from episode 1, we end up with $1,250.88. We'll see you next time.